Roughly 1/4 of the Earth's land surface is covered by mountains. More than half of the world's population depends on the rivers that are fed by the ice and snow that form in mountain ranges. Taller mountains provide unique environments that support specially adapted life. But as the planet warms, the animals that live there are being stranded, and the snowpack is melting. Around the world, mountain glaciers and the rivers they feed are in decline. Some mountains are formed by volcanic action, but mountain ranges are the pressure ridges that result from the compression of the Earth's tectonic plates. Some ranges are continuing to grow taller, while others that stopped growing long ago are being worn away as ancient hills. The Himalayan mountain system lies between the Indian subcontinent and the Tibetan Plateau. It is the world's highest mountain system, yet it is one of the youngest. In 1953, a Himalayan expedition to climb the world's highest mountain, Mount Everest, or Sagarmatha, was successful. New Zealander Edmund Hillary and Nepali Tenzing Norgay spent 15 minutes at the summit. When they returned, they were welcomed as heroes. In Kathmandu, celebrations continued, with the local people delighted that Tenzing, a Sherpa from eastern Nepal, had been there for the final ascent. The Sherpas, an ethnically distinct group from the Khumbu region, have played an important role in all the Himalayan expeditions. Their reputation as mountaineers is unsurpassed, and a flourishing tourist industry brings international visitors to see the Sherpas' homeland in the foothills around the world's highest mountain. Nearly 30,000 tourists visit Nepal every year, and this has transformed the economy of the region. In Nepal, most of the people are subsistence farmers, but Sherpas who work in the tourism industry can earn much higher incomes. Their strength, experience, and congenial demeanour make them ideal companions for climbers. Sherpas own most of the lodges in the Khumbu region and many of the companies that organise the treks in Kathmandu. Many villages in Khumbu enjoy some of the modern conveniences made possible by the Sherpas' success. With the tourists come other outside influences, and some from the region are seeking a life with more material rewards. Everything brought into the area is carried in, either by a porter or on a donkey, with only the very rich or film crews being carried in and out in helicopters. But the popularity of the region has drawbacks as well. With the tourists comes lots of rubbish, and there is no satisfactory way to regularly clear the garbage as it accumulates. Growth in the region has improved the standard of living in many of the villages. Thousands of young Sherpa families have moved to bigger cities like Kathmandu, looking to better themselves. But there is concern that as they leave Khumbu, they will leave part of their culture behind. A population of only 10,000 Sherpas remains in Khumbu. At an altitude of 3,500 metres, the village of Namche Bazaar is the gateway for people coming to visit the Everest area. Every Saturday morning, a market attracts traders from the surrounding valleys. Namche Bazaar is an important regional centre, and the village enjoys a higher standard of living than the capital, Kathmandu. Meat and vegetables are sold, as well as Chinese electrical goods and other luxury items. The tourist trade has been good for the town. It is important for trekkers going to high altitudes to spend time here to acclimatise for at least 2 nights. In the villages, people make an effort to preserve their traditions and to pass them on to younger generations. In Kumjung, villagers wearing traditional costumes hold ceremonies just before the rainy season to promote a good harvest, and they still hold deep religious convictions, which promote the Buddhist ideal of compassion for all living things. Sherpas are ethnically similar to Tibetans. The first populations arrived from the north about 500 years ago, and they share traditions, such as the flying of prayer flags. Some of these flags flutter in memory of Edmund Hillary's wife, who died in a plane crash flying to join her husband. The Khumbu area does not just remember Hillary for his mountaineering exploits. During his life, he worked diligently to improve the lives of the people living in the area, and local school children have been some of the main beneficiaries. Although children in the Khumbu region have to climb up kilometres of rocky mountain path to get to school, they are luckier than their parents, who did not have such an opportunity. The Khumjung Secondary School was built by the Himalayan Trust, which Hillary established over 40 years ago. The school is still the only secondary school in the region. Previously, in this part of the Himalayas, opportunity had been severely limited, but today, basic services are available and people are able to improve their lives. The education provided by the schools Hillary founded has helped many escape a subsistence life among the peaks. Many Khumjung graduates are doctors, engineers and businessmen in Kathmandu or even further afield. One reason for the success of the Himalayan Trust is that it works with local communities to implement new projects. 27 schools were established in the Khumbu region with the help of the Himalayan Trust. It also supports scholarships and adult literacy classes. One graduate from Khumjung, Anne Shearing Sherpa, owns and runs Yeti Airlines, which offers full domestic service across Nepal. The Trust also helped set up a hospital in Kunde in 1966. The terrain makes road building extremely difficult, so people must walk, sometimes for days, to the hospital. Nepal has a burden of preventable disease, and tuberculosis is a big problem. A program of diagnosis and antibiotic treatment of the disease is starting to have a major impact. The beauty of the Khumbu region, in particular the distinctive Ama Dablam, attracts trekkers from around the world, and many Sherpas work as porters and guides, supporting the groups that come to see the world's highest mountain. Everything is carried in the woven headstrap baskets, and porters develop very strong neck muscles. The large numbers of tourists that are attracted to the area have been a boon to the local economy, but with the travellers come other things, not all of which leave. Since the first ascent of Mount Everest, climbing teams have left behind rubbish, which has accumulated as a legacy of shame. Several teams have cleared more than 10 tonnes of rubbish since the mid-1990s, after complaints from climbers that Everest had turned into the world's highest garbage dump. Japan's Ken Noguchi, who launched a clean-up drive around the 50th anniversary of the first successful climb, said his 30-member team of Japanese, Korean and Nepali climbers had collected 51 oxygen cylinders, food cans, tents, gas tanks, plastic and ropes from various camps en route to the peak. Some of the garbage was put on display in Japan and South Korea to increase public awareness of the pollution on the mountain, and some of it was left behind in Nepal to be displayed in Kathmandu and Pokhara. The Nepalese government now requires climbing expeditions to pay a deposit, which is returned when the staging camps have been cleaned at the end of the climb. Local authorities recommend that recyclable metal containers be used by expeditioners so they can easily be crushed and brought back down. Climbing the world's highest mountain is now so popular that some of the climbers are criticised as people who buy their way to the summit, with some climbers being led up the mountain by experienced guides. This popularity is proving to be a curse, as woodlands are diminishing as they are cut to provide firewood to keep cold tourists warm. The influx of sightseers is seen overall as a good thing, but new regulations are being introduced to prevent this type of pollution. In 2003, the United Nations launched its first Mountain Watch report, designed to help decision-makers assess the condition of their country's mountain ranges and the rivers that rely on them. The report's findings show that the world's mountains are being affected by changes in the Earth's climate. Mountain ranges play an important role as feeders of the world's river systems. The high-altitude snowpack acts as a reservoir that gradually melts over the warmer months, providing reliable water flows. But around the world, the snowpack is in decline. To find out more about the effect global warming is having on alpine environments, a research centre in America's Rocky Mountains is conducting an extensive study. Situated in the abandoned mining town of Gothic, Colorado, the Rocky Mountain Biological Laboratory is a high-altitude field research centre that has, for more than 70 years, been a hub for biological research projects. While looking at a wide variety of flora and fauna of the region, the scientists are all studying aspects of climate change and global warming. Yellow-bellied marmots are one of the key animals in the local ecosystem, and researchers have found they are running out of food and becoming easy prey for the coyotes when they emerge earlier from their winter hibernation. The drier, warmer weather has reduced the number of insects in the area, and this is affecting the local bird population. Another indicator of change in the mountains is the growth patterns of plants and wildflowers. One research team here has spent more than 20 years documenting the demography, pollination, and seed production of local plant life. Plants are shooting earlier in the growing season, and there is an increased likelihood that these plants will be affected by frost. Plants are also being eaten at a greater rate by the growing deer population and being adversely affected by the warmer, drier weather. One prediction says that in 50 to 75 years, the wildflowers of the high country of Colorado will give way to the dryland sagebrush, which is typically seen at much lower, drier altitudes. Some of the flora will migrate to higher altitudes, but there is much less suitable land at higher elevations, and some species could vanish completely. In 2001, the Global Observation Research Initiative in Alpine Environments was established to monitor the vertical migration of plant species at a number of sites around the world. The US National Aeronautics and Space Administration warned that a glacier in Peru's Andes Mountains could break apart, causing an avalanche in a populated valley. But local geologists said the US agency was being alarmist. NASA said its Terra satellite had detected an ominous crack in the Cupi Glacier, calling it a potential disaster in the making, near the tourist town of Huaraz, 270 kilometres north of Lima. The agency said that a large glacier chunk could break off and fall into the lake, causing a flood that could reach Huaraz and its tens of thousands of residents in less than 15 minutes. The NASA warning was splashed across the front pages of several tabloid newspapers in Peru, reviving memories of an earthquake and avalanche which killed about 70,000 people near Huaraz 30 years ago. Huaraz, surrounded by the spectacular snow-capped Cordillera Blanca mountain range, is a prime climbing and hiking destination for both Peruvian and foreign tourists. Experts say NASA's intent was to show that their instrument was able to monitor the situation and provide useful data. The head of the Andean Geological Institute said it is normal for Andean glaciers to have cracks, but inaccurate that an avalanche would reach Huaraz in 15 minutes. For the past 18 years, Alan Hinks has dedicated himself to reaching the world's highest peaks. He's climbed all 14 of the world's 8,000-metre peaks. After two previous attempts on Kanchenjunga in Nepal, one where he was beaten back by snowfalls and another where he broke his arm, he returned to the UK after his third attempt was successful.
Is this video? Yeah, that's right.
Kanchenjunga is the third highest mountain in the world, and Hinks chose to make the ascent in what was later called the worst season in living memory. He marked the event in his customary way by producing a picture of his daughter and grandson. During the climb, Alan Hinks lost around 10 kilos in weight. The ascent makes Hinks a member of the 8,000ers Club. At the first attempt, Hinks and his climbing companion Pasangelu were beaten back by heavy snows. After camping overnight further down the mountain, the pair returned the next day to successfully reach the summit. Recent snowfall in the German Alps has not just improved skiing conditions, it has also increased the danger of avalanches, according to the Bavarian section of Germany's Red Cross Mountain Rescue Team. Members of the team held a drill atop the Altspitze mountain above Garmisch to refresh their skills as well as those of their dogs. Flares are used to mark the areas where helicopters can land. The service is important for rescuing people who often break legs while skiing. What really concerns rescue workers here is the possibility of avalanche, where the major problem is not getting victims out, but digging them out. To help find buried skiers, the mountain rescue team works with trained snow dogs. They are trained to search large areas for climbers or skiers missing in extremely rough terrain. In just one season recently, 9 people were caught in avalanches here, with 5 of them losing their lives. The dogs are vital in guiding rescuers to lost or trapped victims. Before dogs were used, rescue teams employed probing rods to locate people buried beneath the snow. The dog and its handler are a team that always works together. The dog rapidly searches for human scent rising through the snow. The handler is equipped with a hands-free radio to communicate with other workers and the helicopter. In avalanche rescues, speed in locating buried victims is crucial. 90% of those who are buried in avalanches will survive if they can be located within 15 minutes. In Austria, there is one recorded case of a dog that located a victim buried beneath 12 meters of snow. Not only can the dogs locate buried skiers, but they are well equipped for digging them out. This is a high-risk job, and rescue teams risk their lives in trying to save the lives of others. All Mountain Rescue Service members must attend a 1-week refresher course each winter, including a night drill and abseiling from a helicopter. In Davos, at the Swiss Federal Institute for Snow and Avalanche Research, scientists study alpine snow conditions that are likely to result in avalanches. The institute is unique in Switzerland and one of only 2 such research centres in Europe. It monitors conditions around Switzerland and publishes daily avalanche danger forecasts, which are publicly available. Researchers at the institute say their work is essential to the public's safety in the Alps, even though snowfall has decreased over recent years. The Institute, or SLF as it is sometimes called, has remote automated monitoring stations throughout the Alps. Sophisticated devices at these stations constantly measure wind speed, the depth of the snow, and the surface temperature of the snow. The information is transmitted to Davos and used to create avalanche forecasts twice a day. In the Institute's cold laboratory, temperatures are maintained at close to outside levels. In this laboratory, samples from various areas around Davos are analysed. The snow is tested for density and viscosity, factors important in ascertaining the stability of large bodies of snow. Work done here looks at the way solar radiation can affect the stability of large tracts of snow. Also of interest is the formation of faceted crystals that form near wet layers in large areas of snow on steep faces. alpine regions around the world are at risk during wintertime from snow avalanches, and the Institute is also doing pioneering work testing avalanche defence structures. Further east in Switzerland, the Matterhorn is famous for its spectacular pointed peak. In 2003, Uli Gegenschatz from Switzerland and Hannes Ach of Austria were climbing to a point near the Matterhorn summit, but they had no intention of climbing back down. The pair had studied the mountain closely, and they were making for a particular point. Because of the Matterhorn's shape, numerous inspections were needed to find a vertical wall high enough for their purposes. Gegenschatz and Ach had picked the perfect spring morning to start their climb, and although the mountain had been climbed countless times before, nobody had jumped off. Not deliberately, anyway.
Merkst du die Höhe?
This is what the pair intended to do, and a helicopter and camera crew were on hand to capture the event. Finally, the insurance broker and the pilot reached their objective just 270 metres below the summit and started to prepare. Their backpacks were actually parachutes, and they had brought helmets with them. They were at the edge of a sheer drop that would allow them enough clear air to free fall far enough for their parachutes to open safely. Gegenschatz went first. 2 minutes later, Hannes followed. The free fall lasted only 1.5 seconds. That was followed by a 9-minute canopy ride to the snowfields below. Since, Gegenschatz has gone on to jump from the Eiger and even from the Eiffel Tower. After this, many others have base jumped from the mountain, but only Uli Gegenschatz will be the first person ever to jump from the Matterhorn.